Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I am your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest first rose to fame as Darlene Connor on the amazing classic hit sitcom, maybe my favorite sitcom of all time, Roseanne. Now, Sara Gilbert and the Connors are back for season 2, and things are just as hilariously dysfunctional as ever. Let's take a look at the Connors.
Could you do me a huge favor and run down to the coffee shop and get me another cup of coffee with agave?
And on the off chance that Cup O' Mud doesn't have agave, is there another exotic plant that you'll accept?
Yes, I'll take black tar heroin.
Got it.
Hey, David, I'm at work. What's up?
Everybody, please welcome the great Sara Gilbert. Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, what was it, 10 episodes for the first season of The Connors, and now you're doing the full run. You're doing like 21,
We're
22?
doing 19.
19.
We had kind of to figure out schedules, and 19 was what we could handle.
Right. Goodman has another show on HBO. Laurie Metcalf is doing Broadway again in March.
That's right.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a lot of
for
stuff
all
going
you.
on.
And you are an EP of the show. I mean, from what I understand, you really ushered this show back into existence in its previous iteration and now in this iteration as well. What initially prompted that whole idea?
Well, actually, John Goodman came on my talk show, The Talk, that I just left. But when I was there, he came on and we did a little sketch, like a parody of the original show. And I didn't ever think any of the cast would want to do a reboot. And when he was there, I asked him, or one of the hosts asked him on the air if he'd ever consider it. And he said in a heartbeat. Wow. And so I think that made me start to realize that actually maybe the cast would do it.
There was something about lightning in a bottle with the original series there. I remember watching it as a kid and then even going back to it as an adult and being like, rarely ever do people in a sitcom work this well together.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing you can't really plan. It's you have the chemistry or you don't. It's like dating.
You know, you were on The Talk. You co-creator of The Talk, correct? Creator of The Talk.
I mean, but whatever.
Excuse me. I don't know why I went for co-creator first. Creator of The Talk. What's so fascinating about that to me is that your character of Darlene is someone who it's impossible to remove you from her in so many ways, having grown up with that character. And that is not someone that I would ever imagine being on a morning talk show talking about the news or like this sort of fluff in her life.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of an anti-host, I always say. Like, I'm the opposite, and it's strange that I ended up there, but I remember pitching the show, and I had a lot of hesitation and reluctance and fear about it. So when I pitched it, I actually said to them, you guys are probably going to buy this because I don't really want to do it, because I was just so scared to do it. And then over time, I just grew to love it, to share, you know, certain pieces of your life and give your opinion on things and have a voice. And I think there's something awesome in that.
I do that all the time. It's like, here's a show, but you could have somebody else host it. I don't have to put me in there. Don't do that. How did you grow comfortable with sharing that parts of your life? And do you think that there is a talent to knowing what to share and what not to share?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. I share less than the average host. Yeah, Sharon for sure. But I think it's just about being authentic, that's what resonates with people. And so I was never going to go on and be cheery and fluffy and, you know, whatever. I was just going to come on and be me and try to be real. And I think that there are people that relate to that because not everybody is up and so enthusiastic all the time. So for all you downers, you can relate to me.
You would never guess it, but I'm a bit of a downer myself. I know how to turn it on a little bit, but generally I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
So after, you know, the controversy, you guys had to pick up the pieces and rebuild the show and sort of create the Connors. And now going into the second season, what does it feel like at this point? I mean, every show feels better, I think, within the second season. Any kind of show is just generally better in the second season.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting our stride, understanding what the show is. You know, we had to figure out what is this version of the show. And so now everybody seems to be in lockstep and just we're excited to tell these stories and go on this adventure with this family.
Is it feel important to be telling the stories of this family right now?
It does feel important. I mean, I think it's never lost its relevance or its importance. There's not many shows that honestly deal with the middle class and the struggles in this country. I think there are shows that say the characters don't have money and then you can't really tell. Whereas I think on our show, we really are up against it. You see us paying bills or not being able to pay our bills and dealing with healthcare, dealing with when we go up against a big company or all these things that people face in their day-to-day life, we're trying to give an honest voice to.
Where do you are an executive producer of the show. Where do you and the writers sort of mine your stories from? And what were you thinking going into this season in terms of the kind of stories that you want to tell?
Well, pretty much, I think all, if not all but one, but maybe all of the writers have working class backgrounds, grew up that way. So often they're bringing stories from their lives. Bruce Helford, who runs the show, he was on the original for one season, and in the original, there was a story I think about the electricity being turned off that was from his life, and David's mother being difficult with him. That came from a girlfriend he dated. So I think they're drawing on their own experiences often.
One of my favorite episodes from the original iteration of the show was, and I had watched it as an adult. I had recently seen it as an adult, and it blew me away because I had forgotten how poignantly told the stories were. And it was Becky wants like a dress or a pair of shoes from the mall, and in order to get that, she has to take money away from somebody else in the family. And it's this great lesson about sort of living in a family versus living for yourself, which I thought. One, it was told without preaching, and it was told without being corny in the way that like Full House would preach at the end of the day. But it still imparted a really great economic lesson that I think
Right.
most shows would really shy away from.
Did she buy the shoes?
She did not buy the shoes. I don't think.
I
at the
have
end of the
no
day.
memory of this episode. It's so
It's a
strange
very
how
early
you-
one. You were like probably
Okay.
like as much of a child as I think it was like first or second
Okay.
season.
Okay.
Yeah. How involved are you as an EP in the writers' room? How involved do you want to be? And that's got to be a new thing for you in some way because the talk wasn't necessarily it wasn't a scripted show.
It wasn't a scripted show. I like to be in the writer's room a lot at the beginning of each season until we start production. And then I spend my focus more on stage and then just doing notes after run-throughs and things like that. But our writers are so incredible. It's my own peace of mind and enjoying the process. But the truth is I could disappear and not show up for one day and they would write an incredible show.
Which is something that I feel like, based off of some articles that I've read, you're not leaning into not showing up, but enjoying this period of time in your life where you have a little more free time.
Yeah, it's nice. The first day the talk came back that I wasn't there, I was texting everybody and missing them, and all week texting them, and I'm sure they're thinking, "Okay, you left, like leave," but it was nice because I was saying to them, I just left a yoga class and I knew they were getting ready to go on air. And
So you were teasing them.
yeah, exactly. I had dropped my youngest off at school and just feeling like, oh, wow, I have a second to take a breath. And also am producing with Tom Werner, who's my partner in producing The Connors. We started a production company, so we've been developing things and being creative like that, and it's just great to have a little more time.
Has it been a while since you've been able to be creative like that, develop ideas like that? I think when you say develop, I'm imagining more scripted work.
Yeah, more scripted work. We had started before the talk was finished for me, but it was just I was stretched really thin, and now I have more time to focus on it.
So what kind of, you go into season 2, Darlene is in some ways the same person as Roseanne, as she's always been on the show, but in many ways a different person because you're coming back, new writers, you're a different person. As you've gotten a little older, I'm sure you've got ideas as to about who she is. What sort of ideas do you come into the room with in season 2 for what you want to see happen with Darlene?
Well, we've talked about, it's not just my ideas, but as a group, we've talked about, we're obviously, Darlene starts in this love triangle. And so I think this season we'll get to see a lot of like why Darlene puts herself in these weird situations. What's the psychology going on? How is she limited in relationship? Will she face that?
How is she limited?
Well, I think I don't want to spoil too much, but I would just say if anybody who's in a triangle has got something going on, right?
Yeah.
Psychologically.
And one of the members of that triangle is David, right?
That's right. Yeah, Johnny Galecki plays David, and he's one of the parts of the triangulation.
That is someone who, upon doing the first reboot, it was really hard for you guys to get him back on the show, right? Because he was still in contract with Big Bang, and it was almost
That's right.
impossible to get him on the show.
That's right. It's it's hard to get him on the show, but it's worth it.
You've been friends with him since the show, right? How long? How has that friendship lasted over the years?
He's just such a great friend. Anytime I need anything or just want to talk or whatever, he's just always there, so supportive, so loving. Hopefully I'm the same for him. I don't know, you'd have to ask him.
We have Johnny here. When the show was first airing, Goodman was really, I think, known as kind of like the actor of the bunch because he'd already done some Coen Brothers movies and he had done The Babe. I think his star was really on the rise as like a leading man at the time. But in this iteration, Laurie Metcalf has really, like at this stage in her career, she's always been beloved, but she's really getting a different kind of attention.
She's on fire right now. Yeah, she's just doing. She's won 2 Tonys, I think, and nominated for a 3rd just recently, and nominated for an Oscar, and she's killing it right now.
What has that been like for you and maybe even other members of the cast to see this person who you grew up with knowing was just the best now getting the attention? I think she won. Did she win Emmys as well, though, for the show back in the day?
Yeah, she did.
So she was appreciated then.
She's always been considered a tremendous talent, but watching her is incredible. She's so down to earth, and she's not in it for the awards. I think for her, it's probably hard to show up at the award shows because she's so shy, but it's great to see her get recognized, and I know she appreciates it, of course. And also, it's just tremendous to watch her. I feel like it's a masterclass in acting, so I'm always just trying to watch and learn and ask her questions.
What kind of questions do you ask her?
So many things, but I'll just say she'll do something that's so outrageously broad that I don't understand how she's getting away with it. And I'll say, like, how do you know you can do that and that it's not going to just seem broad? But then she said to me, I think, well, it just feels right, so I just do it. And I think, well, that doesn't help me.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily work for the energy that you bring to your character,
We're
though.
really different. Yeah, we're different kinds of performers. But I've asked her, so many questions. What does she do in a play if she's doing the same thing over and over again and the emotion isn't coming in that particular moment?
I'm curious, is there a part of you that, you act in the show? I mean, you're really the star of the show. Is there a part of you that is that, though, because you want to see the show made and you are the producer first? Do you love acting and performing, or are you really more of a producer first?
I love acting. I think I'll always be an actor first because that's what I started as, and that's the perspective I'm coming from. And producing is an extension of that. Just the creativity and being able to make things is so exciting. And I think if you're an actor long enough in the industry, you want to start doing other things, because being an actor for hire and just going out and auditioning and trying to get a job, you have no control, you have no power. At some point, you start getting older, it just starts getting humiliating, So
When was the last time you auditioned for something?
Pretty recently auditioned for something that I did not get, but I felt good about it because there was like 14 or 15 pages of material, and I felt like I did it really well, and then I went back and I did it again. I got crazy about it. For me, it's more like if I get crazy about it and I commit myself and they offer it to somebody else, I think they just offered it to somebody who hadn't auditioned. I felt like, well, that's okay, because that could have been in the works before me, but it's like if you feel good about what you did, then
That is actually the hardest thing. I mean, the hardest thing about for actors is, of course, not getting the part, but the idea that so many things that you, at a certain level that you may be going out for, it may just be this sort of backup thing, and they're waiting for the contracts to go through on somebody else. That is terrifying.
Exactly. But then it can flip around, and then sometime I can get offered something and screw somebody else over. So that's great.
Great for you, not for them. You know, when the controversy struck at the end, after you guys were done shooting the first season, one of the things that I thought was kind of amazing that you did, and that like Lori and John did, is that like the three of you were gonna be fine. I mean, you had the talk, you had a production company. Lori's doing movies and plays. Goodman is always getting cast in something. But these two here, I mean, this was kind of their first time back in a while, really being on camera and doing a big show. And it felt like one of the big reasons that you guys brought thought about doing the Connors was to make sure that everybody, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, got to keep doing this show because the audience was there.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we definitely wanted the crew especially to continue on, and we wanted to not let the viewers down who wanted to see the show. And most importantly, I think we wanted to preserve the legacy of the original show and have it continue, and at that point, get the reruns back on the air and all that.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. When it comes to the show, when it comes to being Darlene, does it feel like second nature? Is it
It
easy?
does, yeah, it does feel like second nature, because I think because I did it such a young age, that character, that
Like 10 years,
yeah,
right?
for 9 years.
9 years.
There's like it's almost like my stomach tightens when I talk as Darlene. There's a certain thing that my body does that I recognize where the lines come from. It's hard to explain, but it's a physical
Muscle
thing.
memory.
It's like a muscle memory. Mhm.
Yeah. 9 years, you know, people always ask or think about growing up on camera as something that is inherently a bad thing or could be potentially bad, but you turned out pretty well. Why do you think that was?
Don't scratch the surface.
I don't know. I told you backstage that I was at a taping of the reboot, and my favorite part of the taping, outside of watching Laurie Metcalf act in person, was a moment where there was a break. Everybody was, figuring out what to do with the script or lights or something, and your wife showed up, and you ran off stage, and it looked to me like the two of you were having a quick powwow about like family or like the kids, and then she went away. And there was something so beautiful about watching actors have like a really normal life while doing their job,
Right.
I just thought that was kind of amazing. So you seem to have turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I'm all right. I mean, I think honestly, in my family, I think it was always really important to my mom that I get an education and stay somewhat grounded. And so that must have rubbed off in a way. I think also our set was very work oriented. There was a strong work ethic, and in that way, it was always very grounded.
Did you have a period of time after the show ended where you were hunting for different parts or thinking about like what kind of actress you were within the industry?
Yeah. I did some series, like some pilots that didn't go, and then recurred on some stuff and did some little movies, and kind of just ventured around and did little things and was figuring it out for sure. And then just dealing with being in my 20s, which is not a pretty
worst.
thing.
It's the worst.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard age. You really are like an adult, but not an adult.
Everyone thinks and treats you like an adult, but you are in no way
You're
an adult.
in no way ready to know what you're doing at all. Yeah.
No one's really an adult until they're like 27, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like 27, 28, where people eventually go, how do I do this? Everything before that is like a scramble.
It is a scramble of mistakes.
Yeah, a scramble of mistakes and high drama and emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have time for a few questions from the audience. The first one, we'll do the first one from Twitter. It's, when you were younger, how did you keep a straight face? I thought you were hysterical as Darlene. How did you not laugh at the lines they gave you? Because I could never hold in the laughs. I would also translate that to now, where you say, Lori can be extremely broad. How do you hold it in now as well?
Well, sometimes we don't. Luckily, it's not live to air, but we rehearse through the week. So usually we laugh all week. And then by the time you do the show, you've said it 20 times at least, or heard it 20 times. So at that point, okay. And then if I need to, if I'm starting to break in a scene, I'll just try to think of something serious really fast to bring me back to earth. But we just had one the other day where I lost it. She was doing something I can't remember, and I just...
One of the things that I've always loved about the show was that it never felt like anybody was breaking on set, but it did feel like sometimes the show would leave in actors laughing at each other. Like if a character was being funny, you all kind of found that person funny.
Yeah,
And
just
so,
like you would in real life.
yeah, it never felt like I was, I mean, of course, sometimes you're fake laughing, but I did often feel like I was watching people actually laugh at each other and feel like each other were funny.
And sometimes you are, yeah. Sometimes we will let ourselves laugh if it makes sense for the character.
2 more questions. Right here, hi.
Hi.
My name is Gloria Jules.
Hi.
Hi.
I love your hair.
Thank you.
Nice
Matches
to
your
meet
shirt
you.
and your pants.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning it. My question is, are your children also going to get into acting, being that you started at such a young age?
I don't know. I mean, a couple of them seem like they might be performer types. I'm not eager to put them out there, but if it's really important to them, I would let them do like a one-off thing, or I probably wouldn't want them to be on a series or anything.
Well, it would be easier because since you produce also, you just get them in there.
Yeah, but I would be scared to hire my own kid because then if they mess up, it's on you.
All right, thank you.
Is there there's something, I mean, doing a one-off they get to see behind the scenes, I mean, which I'm sure they already get to do a little bit with
And
you.
I think it's a cool experience if they're passionate about it. But I also said to one of my kids, like, why don't you go do a school play? Why don't you go join an after-school thing? I think it's nice to learn first and do it later.
One more question.
Hi, I was wondering if your style's similar to Darlene's and if you ever keep the clothes.
Darlene wears things a little bigger than I am. I mean, I think everybody likes to be home in like a cozy flannel shirt sometimes, right? So that's Darlene's staple. But I laugh with Mary, who she was the costume designer on the original, and she's on the show now. She's a producer, but she also oversees all the visual departments. And we laugh because it's sort of, I'll say like, you can make it a little bit smaller because Darlene's always kind of messy, baggy.
Congratulations on the 2nd season of the show.
Thank you.
It is on Tuesdays on ABC, right?
Yep.
It's fantastic. I'm so happy to have everybody back every Tuesday night. Sara Gilbert, everybody, let's hear it.
Thank you.